In 1974, 79% of Americans fiercely demanded permanent daylight saving time. They wanted the sun to stay out later.
Right, they wanted an absolute end to changing the clocks.
Exactly, and they actually got it. But less than a year later, children were waiting for school buses in pitch black darkness.
Yeah, tragic morning traffic accidents spiked. It was awful.
It was. And the entire country was begging the government to repeal the exact law they had just demanded. So, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Before we look at why politicians are trying to make that exact same mistake again today, please take a second to like, subscribe, follow, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a deep dive.
It really is crucial for keeping up with the research we unpack here.
It is. Also, just a very brief legal update regarding the Martin Stevens versus OpenAI matter. Just to be absolutely clear, it is not a lawsuit.
Right. We are currently in a voluntary quiet period.
Yes, at Martin Stevens' request, just to idle public info. And while we certainly hope for a settlement, we actually do not know if any progress or discussions are currently underway.
And we should add that the dead man's switch hasn't been activated.
Right. So Martin is physically and legally safe.
Good to hear. With that established, we can turn to the massive stack of source material we are analyzing today.
Oh, we have so much to cover.
We really do. We have historical archives from the Smithsonian, extensive medical data and sleep research from the Sleep Foundation, and some breaking legislative news regarding a bill called the Sunshine Protection Act.
And because that breaking news involves recent statements from President Trump endorsing permanent daylight saving time, we need to explicitly state to you, the listener, that we are not taking political sides here.
No, absolutely not.
We are not endorsing any political viewpoints. We are strictly and impartially reporting the facts and the arguments, like exactly as they appear in our source material.
Right. The goal is to understand the mechanics of the legislation and the underlying biology, not to debate the politics of the individuals involved.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's look at the actual mechanics of shifting the clock. Because when you really think about it, daylight saving time is like cutting the top foot off a blanket.
Oh, I love this analogy.
Right. You cut the top foot off, sew it to the bottom, and pretend you've manufactured a longer blanket.
Yeah, you aren't generating extra sunlight.
No. You're just taking an hour of morning light and forcibly stapling it to the evening. And I mean, for the longest time, I always thought we did this for the farmers.
Oh, the farmer myth.
Like the common narrative is that farmers needed more evening light in the fields, right?
Yeah, but the Smithsonian archives show the exact opposite. The agricultural industry actively lobbied against the clock change.
Wait, really? They hated it.
They despised it. Farm logistics, especially a century ago, were entirely solar dependent. I mean, dairy cycles, for instance, are tied to the sun, not a wristwatch.
Oh, sure, cows don't care what time the clock says.
Exactly. So by artificially shifting the clock forward, the morning dew was still on the crops, and the animals were still on their biological sun schedule.
Okay.
But the commercial trains taking those crops and dairy to the market were suddenly leaving an hour earlier on the clock.
Oh, wow. So it messed up their entire supply chain.
Yes, it meant farmers lost an hour of vital morning logistics before the supply chains departed.
Okay, so if the farmers were actively fighting it, the origin story has to come from somewhere else.
It actually traces back to an entomologist in New Zealand named George Vernon Hudson in 1895.
An entomologist, like a bug scientist.
Yeah. He wanted a 2-hour time shift in the summer so that he would have more after-work hours of sunshine to go bug hunting.
You are kidding me. Bug hunting.
Nope. And later, a British builder named William Willett championed it simply to encourage people to enjoy the summer sun.
Okay, so a bug scientist wanting more time to catch beetles and a guy who just liked the summer sun. But that doesn't explain how it became federal law. I mean, it takes a massive geopolitical event to force hundreds of millions of people to alter their perception of time.
And that event was World War I. Germany, England, and eventually the United States in 1918 adopted the clock shift as a wartime measure to conserve energy.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, the theory was purely industrial. If you have more daylight in the evening, people spend more time outside and rely less on coal-powered artificial lighting in their homes.
But the war ended. Why did we keep doing it?
Well, the Chamber of Commerce heavily lobbied to keep it. They recognized this fundamental retail dynamic.
Oh, let me guess. Shopping.
Bingo. If workers have daylight when they leave their factories and offices, they're exponentially more likely to stop and shop on their way home.
So the modern foundation of our timekeeping system is essentially a hybrid of wartime coal rationing and a mechanism to boost retail profits.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow. Which brings us back to that 1974 disaster. Here's where it gets really interesting. If changing the clocks is so universally despised today, it's fascinating that the one time we actually tried to lock the clocks permanently, it failed spectacularly.
Yeah, we tried this under President Nixon during the mounting oil crisis. Congress passed the Emergency Daylight Saving Time Energy Conservation Act of 1974.
And the intention was identical to the World War I logic.
Exactly. Enact year-round permanent daylight saving time to save energy during a massive petroleum shortage.
Right.
And when it was enacted in January 1974, the public mandate was overwhelming. Polling showed a 79% approval rating.
Because people were exhausted by the winter gloom and thrilled at the prospect of permanent evening light.
Exactly.
But if almost 80% of the country wanted this, why did everyone suddenly turn on it so violently within a few months?
Because the reality of permanent daylight saving time in the dead of winter is entirely different from the theory. When you shift that daylight to the evening in January, you are aggressively extending the morning darkness.
Oh, right. The sun wouldn't come up until way later.
Yeah. In the winter months, children were waiting for school buses in pitch-black conditions. It created an immediate public safety crisis.
That sounds terrifying for parents.
It was. In Florida alone, 8 children were killed in traffic accidents in the weeks following the change.
Oh my gosh, that is awful.
The media coverage from that period is harrowing. Parents were describing the morning commute as jet black. School districts in the Washington, D.C. area were forced to delay classes until the sun physically came up.
Just to keep kids safe from drivers who couldn't see them on the roads.
Right. The psychological toll of waking up and operating in complete darkness completely fractured that 79% approval rating. By October of 1974, approval had plummeted to 42%.
And the irony is that it didn't even accomplish the primary goal of energy conservation, did it?
No, not at all. If you look at the Department of Transportation's study of the 1974 experiment, the energy savings were negligible.
Wow.
In some metrics, it may have actually increased gasoline consumption.
Because millions of people were waking up in freezing dark mornings, so they were drastically increasing their use of residential heating.
You nailed it. Whatever fractional energy the country saved on evening lighting was instantly canceled out by the energy spent heating homes before the sun came up.
That is wild.
Yeah. President Gerald Ford repealed the permanent status in October 1974. The Senate committee reported a profound, nationwide distaste for winter daylight saving time.
The 1974 experiment is such a profound historical lesson in the limits of legislating human comfort. We tried to override the planetary reality of winter, and it resulted in tragedy and immediate legislative reversal.
It really did.
So, what does this all mean for us today? Because defying that history, the exact same concept is moving rapidly through Congress again. The Sunshine Protection Act, the bill designed to lock the clocks in permanent daylight saving time, just sailed through the House Energy and Commerce Committee as of May 2026.
Yes, and the vote was 48-1.
48-1. That is not a fringe movement. That is a deliberate, massive legislative push. And it follows a very strange Senate passage back in 2022.
Yeah, the 2022 Senate passage is a fascinating case study in parliamentary procedure. The bill passed by a process called unanimous consent.
Right, which sounds like every senator passionately agreed, but in reality, unanimous consent just means no formal roll call vote took place.
Exactly. A senator requests the bill be passed, and as long as no other senator physically in the room objects, it goes through.
And according to the BuzzFeed report from our sources, many senators were completely unaware the bill was even being brought to the floor.
Yeah, legislative staff often vet these requests and let them pass if they deem them benign. Several senators were vehemently opposed to the bill and would have objected had they been informed.
That is just crazy how that happens.
It stalled out in the House back then, but the 48-1 committee vote in 2026 shows it's no longer slipping through unnoticed. It is now tied to a broader 5-year transportation funding package.
Right. And the momentum has been significantly amplified by the breaking news we mentioned. President Trump just endorsed the plan on Truth Social.
He did.
Reporting neutrally on the source text here, the president referred to the biannual clock change as a, quote, ridiculous twice-yearly production.
And his argument makes sense from a municipal standpoint. The core of his argument centers on the logistical and financial burdens placed on cities.
Right, local governments having to hire dedicated crews and rent heavy machinery like cranes simply to physically adjust massive public tower clocks twice a year.
Yeah, he argued it's time people can stop worrying about the clock and committed to working with lawmakers to get the bill signed into law.
And the economic arguments are pretty straightforward.
Right. Supporters of the Sunshine Protection Act point out that stopping the switches eliminates all that bureaucratic headache. Plus, aligning peak rush hour traffic with better natural evening visibility could improve afternoon public safety.
While simultaneously driving consumer spending through longer winter evenings, people shop and dine out more when it's light out after work.
Exactly.
But so we are seeing this massive push from the public and politicians for permanent evening light. But when you look at the medical data, the scientific community is heavily opposing permanent daylight saving time.
Heavily. What's fascinating here is how split the public and the experts are. A 2025 survey by the Center for Public Opinion Research at Stetson University found that 75% of Americans want to stop changing the clocks.
Which makes sense. Nobody likes the disruption.
Right. But when asked which system they prefer, 54% favor year-round daylight saving time, the system with later sunrises and more evening light. Only 21% supported a permanent switch to standard time.
So the public polling strongly aligns with the current legislation.
Yes, but the medical experts, groups like the Sleep Research Society and the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, are fiercely advocating for permanent standard time. They are warning against the exact policy the public wants.
Because living in permanent daylight saving time is like trying to force a plant to photosynthesize at midnight by holding a flashlight to its leaves.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, your biology is waiting for the physical sun, not the arbitrary number displayed on your iPhone. When the alarm goes off at 6 a.m., but the sun doesn't rise until 8 a.m., you are forcing your body to perform daytime metabolic functions in a nocturnal state.
That touches on the exact mechanism of our circadian rhythms. Your internal biological clock regulates your sleep and wake cycles, hormone production, and cellular regeneration.
And this clock is synced to the actual physical position of the sun.
Precisely. When morning light hits the retina of your eye, that signal travels directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain.
The what nucleus?
The suprachiasmatic nucleus. It triggers a cascade of biological responses. It immediately shuts off the production of melatonin, which is the sleep hormone.
Okay.
Simultaneously, it triggers the cortisol awakening response. This is a spike in cortisol that raises your blood pressure slightly, increases your body temperature, and prepares your metabolism to process food and expend energy.
So when we wake up in the pitch black of permanent winter daylight saving time, that entire biological startup sequence just misfires.
Completely. If there is no morning sunlight hitting your retina, your brain continues to pump out melatonin. Your cortisol awakening response is blunted and sluggish.
Right.
You wake up, you force yourself out of bed, and you eat breakfast. But biologically, your pancreas and your digestive system are still in sleep mode. Yeah, they do not release insulin properly to process the glucose from your food. Your blood sugar spikes. You are essentially demanding peak daytime performance from an endocrine system that believes it is still the middle of the night.
Which perfectly explains the massive health consequences detailed in the 2025 Stanford University study. They looked at the year-long circadian health impact of different time policies using CDC data, right?
Yes, they did.
And the researchers predicted that switching to permanent standard time, the system that aligns our clocks with the actual sun, could reduce obesity by 2.6 million cases.
And reduce strokes by 300,000 cases.
That mechanism you just described explains those numbers perfectly. If your pancreas is sluggish every single morning because you're eating breakfast in the dark, you are building a daily habit of insulin resistance.
Exactly.
And compounded over years and decades, that subtle misalignment turns directly into metabolic syndrome, obesity, and cardiovascular disease.
It also creates a chronic nationwide sleep debt. The Sleep Research Society notes that under daylight saving time, a 1 hour later sunrise results in an average of 19 minutes less sleep per night for the average person.
19 minutes doesn't sound like much for just one night.
It doesn't, but
Yeah.
when you compound that deficit every night over months, you are inducing chronic sleep deprivation. And chronic sleep deprivation is a proven catalyst for higher rates of depression, heart attacks, diabetes, and certain cancers.
It also directly impacts immediate public safety. We already know the spring clock change itself causes a massive documented spike in fatal motor vehicle accidents and workplace injuries in the days immediately following the shift.
Right.
But living in permanent daylight saving time means we would spend 2 to 4 months of the year waiting for the sun to rise at 8 a.m. or even 10 a.m. in some northern and western parts of the country.
We would be placing teenagers and children right back into the exact same dangerous dark morning commutes that forced the 1974 repeal.
And biologically, teenagers are uniquely vulnerable here, aren't they?
Very. Their circadian rhythms naturally shift later during puberty. Forcing them to wake up even earlier relative to the solar cycle deeply impairs their brain development.
Wow.
The Sleep Research Society highlights that chronic circadian misalignment in adolescence leads to worsened graduation rates, lower standardized test scores, and severe mental health challenges.
So we have an overwhelming medical consensus pointing to standard time, yet the public mandate is pushing hard for daylight saving time. But looking closely at that Stetson University survey, there is one fascinating demographic anomaly regarding who actually wants what.
Oh, the Gen Z data.
Yeah, 32% of Gen Z, so those aged 18 to 29, actually want to keep the current system of changing the clocks twice a year. That is a statistically significant divergence from every other generation who overwhelmingly just want the switching to stop.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen Smallpage, the director of the polling center at Stetson, offered a few analytical theories on why Gen Z might prefer the biannual disruption.
What was the main takeaway?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the most compelling theory is the structural shift in how younger demographics work and live. The younger generation has a much higher density of remote workers, gig economy participants, and flexible schedules.
Oh, that makes sense. They are far less rigidly tethered to a strict 9 to 5 factory whistle or office clock.
Exactly. If your schedule is flexible, the biological shock of the time change is heavily mitigated. A remote worker who sets their own hours can simply sleep in an extra hour in the spring to naturally absorb the time change.
Right, they aren't experiencing the violent circadian disruption that a construction worker or a parent of high schoolers experiences when the alarm clock mandates they be on the road before dawn.
It really highlights how our relationship with time is fundamentally dictated by our socioeconomic structures.
Yeah.
If you have the flexibility to align your schedule with your biological needs, the clock change is a mild curiosity.
But if you are bound to a rigid institutional schedule, the clock change is a physical and psychological assault.
Exactly.
So we are caught in a massive societal tug of war. On one side, we have an economic and political system built around the very real benefits of evening light. Extending the daylight into the evening eliminates the municipal burden of changing public clocks, it gives us the leisure time we desire, and provides a massive, tangible boost to the retail and hospitality sectors.
People want to golf, shop, and barbecue after work.
Exactly. But on the other side, we have our body's absolute non-negotiable biological necessity for morning sunlight.
We have the historical precedent of 1974 proving exactly how dangerous and psychologically damaging dark winter mornings can be.
And we have the unified voice of the medical community warning that permanently severing our biological clocks from the solar cycle will result in millions of cases of obesity and hundreds of thousands of strokes.
It leaves us with a profound tension between how we want the world to work and how our bodies actually function.
It really does.
And if our internal biological clocks, our hormone production, and our cellular health are so deeply and unchangeably wired to the physical movement of the sun and the rotation of the earth,
Yeah.
what does it say about the sheer hubris of modern society that we literally try to legislate the sun into submission just to benefit retail stores and evening leisure? We are essentially trying to pass a federal law against the rotation of the planet.
We are trying to outlaw the Earth's rotation to save the economy. It is a haunting perspective on how disconnected we've become from our own biology. Well, as you ponder whether you value evening sunlight over your own metabolic health, we are going to wrap up today's deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of time, historical precedent, and circadian biology. Please remember to take a moment to like, subscribe, follow, and hit that notification bell so we can keep bringing you these deep dives. We'll see you next time.